Hi, I'm Joe Scacciaferro, and welcome to On Location. Today we have a great guest, Frank Scacciaferro. He's one of the industry's top-ranked camera operators. He's a robo-operator, a jib operator, a drone operator, a blah-blah-blah operator, and a blah-blah-blah operator. Basically, anything that means you operate a camera from here and the actual camera is out there or over there or over there or over there or across the state or across the country or across the globe, he's all over it. He has shot almost every major sporting event there is, and tons of concerts and political events. This year, he's heading to Tokyo for the 2021 Summer Olympics. Today, Frank Scacciaferro is going to take us inside and behind the scenes of the BigEast college basketball tournament at Madison Square Garden in New York City. Welcome, Frank.
Waiting for some type of clap or walk on.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. So you're just going to say, oh, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so let's move right in. So a while back, we did one of these on the U.S. Open, which was probably right smack in the middle of the height of the pandemic.
Yeah. And
the Open was one of those events that they first tried to do without having anything done traditionally. Let's say it that way. And you and a couple of your cronies that we know well got that opportunity. And that is in the U.S. Open. And you can check it out. We've got both Frank and Rick Cipher talking their way through day by day. So, Frank, you just finished the BigEast. And in doing so, you were so kind as to take a lot of pictures of what was going on and how it was done. I'm going to let you first just set up the environment as compared to what the environments were like in every other major sporting event you have done up until 2020.
Right. Yeah, so for people who don't know what the BigEast is, it's college basketball. It's one of the tournaments that leading up to March Madness, the actual big college tournament, but they do all the different, the SEC, the Big East, and all that stuff all around the country. And then those teams that all leads into actual March Madness. So the Big East is held at Madison Square Garden every year. I mean, this has been going on for forever, but this was my first opportunity to actually work in this tournament. But as far as, big events, especially big sporting events like that at Madison Square Garden, the first thing that's completely different, which is the same thing as the U.S. Open, a lot less people.
So when you say less, the U.S. Open had none.
The U.S. I guess I'm speaking. The U.S. Open had no fans other than some coaches or family, friends, very close people to the actual athletes. Here, there's not. It's not just two teams. It's a tournament, so I forget how many teams were actually in it, but they were allowed to bring family and friends, but there really wasn't that many people attending at most of the games, except for UConn. UConn, I think, had the most, but when I say the most, in Madison Square Garden that holds 20,000 people.
Yeah,
there was probably maybe 100 in the stands.
Wow.
And then as far as personnel on the floor and all that stuff, I assume that there's usually way more media, way more people on the actual floor. So it was definitely. It's a lot easier building and getting around.
So, there's an upside.
Yeah. So.
All right, so that's good. Great segue. You're like a pro. All right, so let's talk about the load-in and the build. Set the stage for us. What does that look like? Now, let me also explain. Frank works at the Garden a lot. Knicks, Rangers, anything that's at the Garden, Frank's one of the people that get bounced into that. So he's pretty comfortable there. But the rest of those who don't get that opportunity, tell us about what this load-in looks like.
Yeah, so like you said, I do work at the Garden a lot, and that's all through MSG. This particularly had nothing to do with MSG networks, right? So I'm working for Fletcher, which is the robo company that I worked for at the U.S. Open, and do a bunch of other stuff for them. So they're huge, especially in sports. Robotic cameras, they're like number one, and they have any of those above the rim in basketball, below the rim, and all weird kind of spots. Like they're all over the place. So they have I think 2 of these RailCam systems. That's what I was working on. That's what I worked on for the beginning of the Nets season as well. We had built one there, and then once fans came back for the Nets, they got it out of there because they were having some people on the floor, and then we packed all that up and shipped it, and it was going to the Big East, which was this past weekend. In addition to the RailCam, they also provide the 2 above the rim cameras. They provided in the scoreboard camera, and then they provided 2 other. They were like in by the locker rooms, like two presser kind of cameras, but more like a POV in the hallway for the locker room for the teams coming out, and then they would do some stand-ups and what that. So all that stuff is all robotic. But the main thing that I worked on personally, with operating with one other person, and then we had 2 techs with us from Fletcher, was the RailCam system. So I mean, backstage, up the ramp, which I know obviously you know what I'm talking about. Anybody who's been in the Garden knows what that ramp is.
Well, no, anybody who's worked in the Garden.
Right, yeah, that's what I mean. Who's worked there? At the top of that ramp is where all of our gear was staged, and I have some photos here that you can see that there's probably, I don't know, over 100 cases between all those cameras I just named. Yeah. So yeah, between all those different camera systems that I just named, there's probably about 100 something cases, of all different shapes, sizes, and then all support equipment that goes with that. And that's, it's not just a case with the camera in it and you go do that. There's like different speed rails, there's different support cases, all types of different monitors for people, for you to operate with, and then there's a whole other thing of all the RF signal stuff of how we actually get the RailCam to work, because there's not cables that are run back to us.
All right, so let me set this up a little bit more. First off, how long does it take to set this thing up?
Well, so funny thing is we I think we had like a 11 a.m. we had one set day, and then this tournament, we had a set day on Tuesday, and then the tournament started Wednesday, which was 3 games. So obviously we had to be completely built that day. So that Tuesday we had our call time, I think was like 11 or noon or something like that, to get tested in the Hulu theater, and then we go inside and start on doing all the cases and all that. But we weren't allowed on the floor, on the actual court, to build until 5:30.
Wow.
At night. Yeah. So we all saw that, and we're like, okay, well, what can we, so then it's like figuring out what can we get done backstage, basically, where all the cases that I'm talking about, what can we do back here pre-build, and then, as soon as 5:30 comes, because it was all the teams that were having their shoot-arounds and practices and stuff. That's why we couldn't go out there, because it's close practice. So we had to basically stage everything, get to a certain point, and then kind of wait until 5:30 and then move out there. But I would say between that noon and 5, 4 of those hours, we were pretty much pre-building the entire time, which is setting up all the actual 10-foot pieces of rail, because they come in sections, and we were building, I think, 110 feet of the entire thing, which is even longer than the court.
Right.
Because the court's 90 feet, so we built, a little bit further beyond the baseline of each. So
let me stop you right now, because I'm trying to get in my head, I'm trying to get a visual here. So there's where's all the utility guys? You guys are camera operators. You're supposed to just come in your white gloves and operate your cameras, and when it's done, you lift your hands up and you walk away. Isn't that how that works?
No. No, no, not at all. Robos are we're kind of all in one. You kind of have to be everything. I mean, we're climbing, depending on what you're doing, you're climbing ladders, you're building all the cameras from scratch and doing all that. I mean, you kind of have to have all that utility work embedded in you anyway. And then I mean, nobody's helping us. It's all the Fletcher guys who I'm talking about, the different robo-ops, we'll all help each other. But it's like one guy has to worry about his camera system that goes above the rim. The other guy's, worrying about his system that goes above the other rim. And then Rick, actually, Cypher, was operating 3 different cameras. He was operating the 2 hallway ones and the scoreboard camera. So he had all his stuff that he had to build. And then between the RailCam guys, which was me, Matt Lissandro, Andy Suzuki, he lives out in Chicago, which is where Fletcher is. He's one of like the shop techs. I mean, he's great. He knows a lot of stuff. Plus, he packed everything, which was very helpful. He packed everything.
Yeah. See, that's one of those things that nobody thinks about.
Yeah. And then this other guy out of LA, another longtime vet, Fletcher guy, Bill Delia. So the 4 of us were pretty much focused on just the RailCam.
Okay, so let's jump back for a second because we don't have all that much time, but I want to get into the actual part of this whole thing. Mm-hmm. Packing, knowing where it's packed. Now, we showed a picture of how many cases we're talking about, and within those cases, there's tiers of things. Right. So why is it important that you know the guy who packed it?
Well, so there was two halves of our thing. That, like I said, Andy packed everything that came out of the shop. But I also said earlier that the RailCam system this particular one was the same one that we had at Nets. So Matt and I actually packed up that entire RailCam system at Barclays Center, and then we packed it, put it on the truck, and then it went straight to MSG and sat there for like a week and a half until this. So we at least knew where everything was as far as the RailCam system.
Right.
But all the other support cases and a lot of other stuff that needed to be added in, the new camera head that we were putting on and going to be using on this stabilized head, all that stuff from Andy that he packed. And him knowing where everything is, what everything is, and a lot of the new tech that we had to use, it's invaluable having somebody there.
All right, let's get to the exciting part of this.
Cool.
So now you're all built. Everything's where it's supposed to be. Let's take it right past that. But you can't go on air yet. You still got to fax out. You still got to check. You still got to make sure things do what they're supposed to do. Mm-hmm. Kind of quickly walk through what that part of it is. Once your things are already connected, now how do you go through this next spot?
So as far as the being like built and leveled and doing all that, there's a lot obviously that goes into that whole build, but without getting into all that stuff, it's kind of hard to rehearse or kind of get a feel for that because it's a live game. You know what I mean? I mean, you can run up and down the track on the rail, though, as much as you want, be like, yeah, it's moving smooth, but as soon as you get into like a live game, things are completely different. You can't anticipate a basketball game, All
right, let's talk. Explain to me when you're saying it goes up and down the track. We're going to talk about specifically, you got some great photos of what this thing looks like. But as an operator, what do you have? What's your assignment? What's your protocol from the director? What are you being told? This is what you have to cover.
Right. So coming from what I got comfortable with doing and understanding how to do this camera system for basketball came from doing a lot of the Nets games, which got a good feel for, that director and how he liked to use it and all that stuff. But that was his first time using it. These guys have used it in the past. I mean, this has been on the BigEast for, I'm not sure exactly how many years, but these directors is the same guys. But there's 2 different directors throughout those 4 days of the tournament. So it's kind of like I had to learn how they want to use it and when they're going to use it and what they want to use it for. So both that's at certain times they'll use it for game action where if the ball's coming up from one baseline, they'll we'll kind of slowly be in front of that and kind of track them all the way up. Sometimes the director will stay with us until we lose the ball or until it goes to the other side of the court. And then a big thing that they use a lot would be coming back from commercials or at the beginning of the game, which is like the scene set, which is when they'll show the huge graphic over. Will be tilted up towards the ceiling and kind of come down towards the court, and that's like the beginning of the game, not like tip. The announcers setting the stage basically for the show, and so you use it for a lot of beauty shots. So you use it for game action, live, like actually take us live, and then it's just such a great look for. If everything lines up perfectly and the ball comes to the near side right in front of us, and then someone hits a three from that corner, and then as soon as they hit that three, we'll slam down and follow that person who hit it for like the hero shot and that kind of stuff. So it's.
So now I've worked with you on other sports, and one of the ones we worked for a long time together is football.
Yeah.
When you were off your shoulder, in an end zone, following the ball. And you had a great instinct for the game, having had opportunities to play in it, and you were shooting for literally since you came out of the cradle. So you go into basketball or hockey, how important is it to understand the game when you're shooting?
Great question. There's two
Thank
answers. Two answers. I've never played hockey and I've never played basketball. Played football my entire life, so I can at least anticipate plays and that kind of stuff. So as far as basketball goes, I've been doing robo for basketball and hockey, but two very different perspectives of the camera that I'm shooting. You know what I mean? Plus, on top of that, it's only me that's operating those other cameras. I operate the RailCam with, I'm the driver. I'm not operating the actual camera. So I have to put the camera operator in the position to get, whatever shot we need. So a lot of it is more, yes, you have to understand the game and how the ball moves around and plays, which is very different from NBA going to college, because NBA, they do a lot of ISO, and they just shoot a lot of threes, and they're in, college, they pass the ball a lot, and they do not stop moving around like the entire time, which was definitely have to get used to that. But as far as like having instincts on just like feeling the game, the anticipation of, getting used to a certain team's flow and how they move the ball and they shoot and that kind of stuff, and then just the intensity of the game and all that kind of stuff, that's all instinctual. But like I said, operating with somebody else, operating the camera, if we don't have the same instincts, we're going to be fighting each other the whole time. It was not an accident that me and Matt were put together. We did a lot of the Nets games together, and him and I are we clicked like immediately. Him and I run our separate robos very similar, run them a lot tighter, and like to take chances. But yeah, so we had a very good flow together, and I think
so. There's definitely a chemistry. There's two people that have to be in sync, because as you're saying, when you're doing it by yourself, you want to get a shot, you pan your camera, move your camera, then push in, then frame it, then pull it, then move it, and do that. Yeah. But when somebody else is moving your camera and you're not framed fast enough, or you weren't anticipating that's got to be pretty tricky.
It is, but I will say this, because I've had, probably almost 4 or 5 years experience piloting for JITACAM, which is not a similar system, but it's dual operators on one system.
Right.
I fly that arm, and there's somebody else operating the camera. Mind you, we also have a love channel in our comms, which with a foot pedal trigger, where we can talk to only each other without talking on the actual camera channel. So him and I just have a private phone line basically that we can trigger with our foot without taking our hands off of anything. Which
That's
I mean,
cool.
not that we use it a lot because we're very comfortable with each other, especially halfway through this tournament after doing, I mean, it was 3 games the first day, 4 games the second day, 2 games, and then 1 game. So like, I mean, by game 3, like we have a pretty good rhythm and know where we want to be and all that kind of stuff. And then, so yeah, that's.
So, yeah, you just mentioned something. Hours, length of time, length of these gigs.
Yeah. Um, this one was definitely a grind. Like I said, I've never done. I mean, did the U.S. Open was long, and a sport that is to me is not as exciting because it's not as quickly paced and doing tennis. But those were long hours as well. But this was we're doing the longest thing is 4 basketball games in a row. Starting at 12:30 in the afternoon until the last game starts at 9 o'clock at night. And we're there at 7 a.m. and we're not leaving until midnight, and then we're back the next day at 7 a.m. So, I mean, they're definitely, probably 4 days of like 14-hour days,
Yeah,
somewhere
it's a
around
lot.
there. I mean,
That's a lot.
and
And you're focused, and it's intense, right?
yeah, exactly. Like I said, you could stare, everybody obviously now stares at screens. You're staring at your phone, your laptop, you're watching TV, any of that stuff. But it's different when I'm like this close staring at a screen, and you really can't. You can't like not pay attention, obviously. It's live sports. And like there's somebody not only like to me it's like not even like the director and the whole truck and like everybody else that's like relying on you. It's like I don't want to let my guy down. You know what I mean? Because if I screw up, then he can't get what he needs to get, and his name is on the wall in the truck, not mine. But I mean, so yeah, there's a lot of focus involved, and you definitely get pretty drained. I mean, but it's fun.
You mentioned something that is interesting, and again, I'm trying to keep our pace up because I just want to cover so much stuff here.
Yeah.
You mentioned you're not on the court, so a lot of what you've done in the past, you're physically there.
Right.
Again, I'm going to go back to working with you in football. It's a pretty nutty place to be when you're on the field because you've got buffaloes running at full speed and you're standing there in your t-shirt and shorts with a little camera, well, not little, but you got a camera on your shoulder.
Yeah.
So you're in the game, but your head's on a swivel. You can see the obstacles coming at you from every direction. Now you're up there and the only vision you have is through the lens, correct?
Yeah. And a lens that I'm not controlling. Like I said, I'm controlling the entire sled, left from one baseline to the other and everywhere in between, and I can only go left and right. Now, when we did it for the nets, our operating station, because there was no fans, when the nets in the beginning of the season, there was no fans allowed. So like we were operating on like the main concourse level, so just one section up basically on like the level up there. So I had physical eyes on, like I could see it's it's far away, but like I can see where it is. I can see if someone's gonna put their hand on the rail, or which they did a lot. A lot of players would go over and use it as like they would stretch on it, which like I mean this thing it's a big hunk of metal and it cruises pretty fast. So if I'm going full speed and your hand's on there, that's a season-ending injury. Now, yeah. So a couple differences for here. Our operating station was not in the bowl. We were operating back where all the picture of the cases are, which there's all the robo-ops were operating in this little like. We kind of made like a little living room kind of operators that had all different tables and all that. So, like I said,
By the way, in the music world, when we do concerts, that's known as Video Village.
Yeah, yeah. Usually there's hammocks and all that kind of stuff hanging under there. Yeah. So yeah, like I said, I don't have physical eyes on it. Plus, at nets, we built that 3 feet in the air, so it's a little more. And we had like these big foam core things that were blocking it. So it was a lot, and it was against the wall. A lot of differences. So it was a lot more protected there. Here, we built this, I don't know, 8 feet from the court, and we built it on these little 6-inch feet off the ground. So I mean, this thing's running on the entire length of the court and beyond, 8 feet from it, and then like behind that, and then people would be walking up and down there, not during gameplay so much, but pregame and all that stuff. But like also like players they run off the court, they'll either jump over it, fall into it, any of that kind of stuff. So what the system that they have 2 Marshall POV cameras that basically jump off of our fiber strands and then run back. They're at either end of the rail, looking down towards each other. And then so I have 2 monitors above my camera return monitor next to my program monitor. So I can see, at least it's not the best thing, but I can see if somebody's crossing into that path, or I can see if somebody's, if something's stuck on the rail or something like that. So I at least have that's how I have my eyes out there, which, wow, it took a little getting used to, because we have those they're called Snoop cameras for like the overhead scoreboard for like hockey and basketball, which is just the same thing, a little Marshall camera pointed at the other camera. So when it's spinning, you know when to spin the other way, so you don't tangle up the cable. So it's a similar thing, but.
So you have a camera watching a camera.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. And you have, I mean, I saw some of the video. Explain what this video is, what we're looking at here, your game action stuff.
Right. So for the championship game, I put a GoPro on the actual sled. So the GoPro is looking at the stabilized head. And then so you can see the movement of that as we're moving up and down the court. And then I took I recorded our actual camera feed, just our camera feed, of, the actual, like what we're actually shooting. So basically you'll have, you're seeing on one screen, you're seeing how the camera is moving up and down, and then what the camera is actually capturing at that point.
So you got cool. what broadcast is putting out.
Right.
And then you got a shot of what your behind the scenes camera to see what that was taking to get that done.
Right.
That's what this video is all about. This is pretty cool, by the way.
Yeah, and then I have the other video in here is I took it was just on my phone. I set it up, and you can see my hand and Matt in the background of him. It's just a side. You won't be able to see our monitors really, but it's just you see my hand moving back and forth on the lever, and him, locked in on his.
Yeah, that's pretty cool to see for me, because it was a good peek into when we say robo operators.
Yeah.
And you say, drone operator. I mean, all these things, unless you've seen it, the world knows what a drone operator is because it's in every movie in the world. Mm-hmm. And the world knows what a video game is because everybody plays a video game. But when you say a robo operator, that completely, no pun intended, but it's off the rail. Nobody knows what that is. So this was a good look in as to what that actually is. And it does resemble both of those things.
Yeah.
There is a similarity to everything. But I've also worked with you with your drone. And your drone, you have your screen of what the drone's seeing, but you can then look and see what the drone is doing and where the drone is.
Right.
So that whole moving blind thing is way bigger than you're making it, because that's a mess. It's got to be very difficult, going back to why this 14-hour day is so intense.
Yeah.
Because all those things have to be playing in your head the whole time.
Well, yeah, and I mean, you're looking at, like I said, I have 4 screens that I'm looking at. So and then the control box is another, like how you set up the actual rail. It's like so basically it knows how long, what your parameters are.
Right.
And there's a little icon that moves, which is the sled that moves on there. So I can follow it 3-4 different ways, basically, to really know exactly where I am on the rail if I'm going to hit one of the, get to one of the sensors on one end or get to one of these sensors on the other end. So I kind of know where I am, but you look like I feel like I'm in like a cockpit basically.
You
Paying
are.
attention to all it's paying attention to all these things, the two POVs that are over my camera feed, then trying to, understand where I am on the court based off of what he's shooting. Because if he's super tight, sometimes it's hard for me to tell where I am on the court. So then I'll have to either glance up, but because they're shooting this way and not out towards the court, it still doesn't give you a really good
Yeah, so you have no geography of
yeah.
your X and Y's are off because
Yeah.
you're tight on a guy's face.
Yeah.
Or something like that. Yeah, no, that makes sense. That's crazy. All right, so now my favorite part of these things. So let's talk about some moments during these games that you went, give me those moments that you kind of swallowed your heart for a second.
I'll give you one real quick before, and then I'll get to that because we actually have footage of it. Real quick, way before this, on the set day, we had built with the head that we were going to build with, which is the DK head, which like Fletcher, that's like their thing. Then they introduced this other, it's actually one of DJI's like stabilized heads that they wanted on there, but none of us really have ever worked with it too much before. So and that has like a lot of intricate settings and modifications and all that kind of stuff. So that was also something that Matt had to get used to, and there was a lot of differences of response time and all that, where it was like we were all kind of a little, not like against it, but it was like we gotta like kind of learn on the fly here with this new head and doing all that. And then we found out a setting in this thing that changed it from, because it's more used for attaching to either like you can attach to like a helicopter or like a like a Steadicam type of rig. So it's more like kind of cinematic moving. That's not cool for basketball unless you're shooting a basketball movie.
What are you trying to say? Basketball's not cinematic?
No, we need something that's like snapping, and we're all used to very mechanical robo heads that are, just to gear up and down and a gear left and right. So that took a little bit of getting used to, and we found a setting in there about two games in that completely changed. And it was like going from, I was explaining it to all these guys, saying like it more felt in the beginning that you were driving like a big yacht. So it's like, you go one way, okay, and then it takes like a while and to go out there and correct itself. And then we found a setting in here that after Andy was on the phone, trying to dial in all these things with the guy that knows the rig really well. I think it was actually his. And he's like, yeah, you could switch to car mode. Switch to car mode. This thing is like, now it's, not only is it snapping all around, but it's like, the rail's a little bumpy if you're, if I'm not driving it perfect. But even if you get, if I'm trying to drive it as smooth as I can, it's still going to be a little bumpy. With the stabilized head, this thing is like, I can slam it all the way left at top speed, and this thing's pretty much just steady. I mean, you'll see in that video. But back to your actual question of the heart dropping moment, which happened, of course, this is when it would happen, and it happened twice. It was about 5 minutes into the championship game.
Wow, always.
Yeah. Like I said, I can only see what the camera sees. And those POVs are only on either end of the rail. So we're down at the near end of the court and starting to, kind of just, if the play's kind of moving around there, I always try at least be moving one way or another. And then when the ball goes up, that's where I'll, snap down or move towards the hero. I don't remember exactly what happened. I don't know if there was a shot and it came off or somebody like tried to steal the ball, but the ball started coming at us. And I saw it happening, and I was already moving to the right, these guys were kind of coming towards us that way. So if I had tried to stop and go that way, so then they kept going that way, it takes a second to change directions. Like it has to like settle for a second, and then it pulls back. So if I would have, I mean, this is all happening in milliseconds. If I would have done that, I think they would have fell and slammed right into this thing. So I just pushed down on the lever really quickly, and it just took off out of the way. And like, I'm telling you, they cleared this by like a few inches, like just almost kind of jumped over the rail for sure, and kind of just jumped over the back end part of the sled. Nothing got hit, nothing happened, but like we got out of the way, and I just like turned and looked at Matt, and I was just like, oh. Like, of course, that's the way to start off. So now we're just on edge, basically, and your heart's racing for of course, obviously in the championship game. Then the rest of the game went really well, as far not as the actual teams, because it was like a 20-point blowout, but towards the end of the game, and this one I have actual footage of in the actual camera return. There's a little sequence of them taking shots. There's an offensive rebound. They take another shot, and they're fighting for a rebound, and the ball gets knocked, and it starts coming right at our camera, like where we are, perfectly lined up. And Matt's like starting to widen out, and I see just like bodies getting bigger. Obviously, we have a wide angle lens, so the bigger they're getting, which means they're getting stupid close to our lens. And again, just like as the ball's coming in, I just slam it left, and he panned with them. So you see them, and now they're not just running and jumping over it. One of the kids actually dove for the ball, so he dove towards us. I just got out of the way, and then he slid and fell into the actual rail. Not like
metal rail.
The metal rail, yeah.
Jeez.
I mean, nothing. Like nobody got hurt. None of that kind of stuff happened, and it was fine. I thought it was going to be a little bit. It like bananaed out a little bit, the one piece of the rail, but it wasn't. Everything was fine. It was still running fine.
Yeah, I mean, as you showed before, the whole rig, the rail, the sled, this is pretty substantial equipment.
Yeah.
And it's doing a lot of stuff. And I'm going to give you two. And it was funny because I was talking to a close friend of mine who's a huge basketball fan. I'm a tech fan. Basketball is not a big deal for me, but I just love this technology, which is why we had to get you on. But he was telling me, he said, oh, yeah, I was watching the Big East the other night. It was great. And he said to me, he didn't know anything about any involvement with us. Mm-hmm. So he said, yeah, I was watching this. They had this coolest camera angle. He said it was like racing up and down, blah, 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 blah. And I laughed. And I said, yeah, it's a RailCam. I said, that was Frank's shot. And he was like, oh, my God, it was this awesome. So there's an appreciation for what you do, but there's never an understanding of the depth of what you guys have to do to get that cool shot.
Right.
And for anybody who remembers because I think the first time I saw this was at one of the Olympics.
Yeah.
When they built it around the track.
Yeah.
And it just chased all the way around the oval. And it went around, and that was the first time I saw that, and I thought, this is the greatest thing in the world.
Yeah, they have a little
reminded me of like at the dog races with the rabbit that goes around.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of different systems, obviously, but especially the Olympics have a completely different, like a different type, but it's all the same.
Okay, so here comes the question from the audience. Anybody who's listening to this, who's interested in this, who thinks it's really cool, and wants your job, the first question, second question. First question is going to be, how did you get your gig, and how do I get in? And the second one is, how did you learn? So why don't you give them the
you want another 40
not so direct path?
You want another 40-minute conversation here?
you meet somebody on the street and they ask you, hey, wow, it's really cool what you do. How does someone get involved in that? And then the second question is, where did you learn all this stuff? Because you just rattled off, and I know that's only about 20% of what you actually know.
Yeah.
So, and I know Fletcher doesn't have the Fletcher School of Robos.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it kind of, for me, it's just like, it's not like I know exactly where it's like, okay, I'm going to learn this, then I'm going to go do that, then I'm going to learn that, then I'm going to do that. It kind of just naturally happens and the opportunities arise. And it's like, okay, I didn't never had done the RailCam before, but I've done robo ops. I've, other just simple kind of robo stuff. I've did a lot of stuff with JITACAM, which is, again, all robo ops and you're operating with somebody else, and have done regular jibs. So it's like kind of that evolution of going from one thing to the next and just understanding what all of those things are, and then not being like, if an opportunity arises for something like this, not being like, oh, I've never done that, I don't know if I can. You kind of learn a lot of it while you're there doing it.
Right.
And the next time you know everything that you had already learned, and then you learn other stuff about it. Like I said, this was a little bit of a different setup. Plus, it's also like, you're not just out there like by yourself. I'm working with like an all-star crew of guys that have been doing this for 30 plus years. Each of them have been doing it for 30 plus years. Plus, they all work together, and it's like for this specific company and other similar ones. So a lot of it's all like, I guess, if what you're asking is like more of the apprenticeship.
That's it. That's literally the word.
Right. And I'm not like obviously I'm not interning with this. Like, I'm operating, and I've been doing this for a while,
absolutely.
But it's something completely new that I had to learn from these other guys. It happened to come a lot more natural.
It's definitely a skill set that builds on a skill set that builds on a skill set that keeps doing it. And I mean, I know your history, and you learned how to frame a shot. You learned how to follow the ball. You learned how to use a camera. And that was all stationary. They were builds up. They were off your shoulder. You learned that and did that for quite a while.
Yeah.
Then you went to working on a jib. A jib got you close to what you had been doing your whole life, which is playing video games, because now you're operating it from controls, you're operating everything from here, and you're not on your camera, which is way out at the end of an arm. Then the natural step from there, and you've had those godfathers who saw you work on a jib and saw you doing a very good job and saying, hey, why don't you come work with us? Robo's not too far from that.
Yeah.
Let's bring you in there. And then you got the nuances of that. And then that each time you work your way up. Nobody in their right mind, whether it's a crewer like myself with a production house, or a director, or anybody of any smarts, is going to say, oh yeah, you work a ped cam in a studio. Hey, by the way, you want to drive this sled? Or you want to fly this thing? Nobody's going to do that.
Right. And it's also like the other thing we were talking about before when you were asking, like, you guys are camera operators. It's like, that's probably like the least part of what like a robo op is like has to do. You know what I mean? Like, there's, like I said, the build and all that stuff, and knowing and like wrenching. I mean, you obviously you drive motorcycles and you talk about wrenching your bike and all that stuff forever. Like, that's probably, you spend more time doing that than you would riding, I would assume. Or like, the riding's the payoff.
Yeah.
The riding's the enjoyable part. That's when you can, you have fun and you do, that, like I said, that's your payoff from putting all that other work into it. We bust our ass on a setup day, and like every single day tweaking little things. Okay, yesterday was a little bumpy here. How can we go in? Maybe we can level this down or make this a little tighter or tweak some settings in here. And, it's kind of tinkering every day. And then finally, like, it's fine on air. It looks great. No, everyone was loving it, but it's like, okay, well, I was having a little trouble here yesterday, or like me and Matt would talk to each other and be like, all right, well, if I'm down here this low, if you could go a little wider, so then I know when this person's coming into frame over here. And it's a lot of that back and forth. And then by the end of the week on the last game, we're like, cool, we got it down. And then it's like, all right, the game's over. Pack everything up and get it the hell out of here. And everybody gets on a plane, you go home, and you don't see them for a month.
Okay, I got a new name for you. I'm going to stop now, but I got a new name for you. Because as you were describing that, all that came into my head was the movie Top Gun. So you're Goose.
Goose.
The two of you.
Goose dies. I don't want to be Goose.
I couldn't remember. He does. You're right. Okay,
Yeah.
so we won't go with Goose.
Well, I understand what you're saying.
But that's what I was thinking about. You got two people in a fighter jet, both critically making decisions and both having to make one decision that are two separate decisions.
Right.
Which is pretty awesome. Because as you said, when I'm on my bike, I don't have to make any decisions. I make them all myself.
Yeah.
But what I will tell you, in bands, as a musician for the whole first half of my life, a lot of what you were saying is the same. Because when you're out playing live and you're in front of a huge audience and the mic goes out or a guitar stops working or the keyboard player decides he's changing keys, everybody has to just suddenly, without any movement, make all those decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. All right, Frank, thanks for the time. You got a lot more coming up, so we're going to get you back here. And thanks for the time, the insights, and that's it.
Yeah, that was fun.
Okay. Ciao.
See you.